All right, very pleased to be joined now by Matt Larkin of Daily Faceoff. Matt, thanks so much for doing this. How you doing today?
I'm good, guys. I'm excited to talk hockey. I'm excited to look ahead to the regular season. I'm really sick of watching guys get hurt in the preseason. To me, I just want to fire that thing into the sun. But let's go, boys. Let's talk.
Let's start there. The most recent injury we've seen, obviously John Gibson. We're going to talk about that, but Drew Doughty today. I think they announced that he's not going to be out for the entire season. But they are saying that he's going to miss some time. A pretty gruesome injury for Drew Doughty, listed as month to month with a fractured ankle.
Yeah, it's tough. Drew Doughty, to me, obviously still an important cog on that team, especially when you look at the changes that Rob Blake made this offseason. I was not happy with the Kings offseason, bringing in guys like Joel Edmondson. This team got slower. I think they're going to take a step back in net. Cam Talbot was a lot better than Darcy Kemper. Now you lose your number one defenseman. I'm actually kind of bearish right now on the LA Kings making the playoffs. On the other hand, what an opportunity for Brandt Clarke, one of the best prospects in the game. He's a right shot. He's got unbelievable puck moving skills. We know he absolutely lit up the OHL, lit up the AHL, made it look pretty easy. And the Kings, they need this guy right now. So that's the silver lining if you're a Kings fan feeling despair to start the year. Brandt Clarke, massive opportunity.
One of the things that sticking to the Pacific Division that I've been really curious about, a team that I've been trying to get a handle on, has been the Vegas Golden Knights, right? It's still not that long ago that they won the Stanley Cup, and yet they took a step back last year, lost some top nine wingers, most notably Jonathan Marchessault in the offseason. And it feels like, at least when we're discussing Pacific teams, that there's not as much discussion around Vegas. And I'm trying to figure out, are they just a playoff caliber team that isn't a real threat to contend for the Cup? Or are they going to be able to recapture the type of form that won them the Stanley Cup? How do you look at Vegas heading into the season?
Yeah, it's funny, Harmon. I talked to Jack Eichel about this a couple of weeks ago at the Player Media Tour, how it was a weird off season for Vegas. Normally, they're the evil empire, just chasing every shiny new thing, upgrading like crazy. But they were so quiet just based on their cap situation. They actually couldn't do much. But one thing that Eichel was telling me about was the idea that they have kind of an upgrade from within when it comes to Thomas Hertl, because he obviously was coming back from a pretty major injury last year. It was sort of a nightmare year in San Jose. He gets with the team. He comes back in time for the playoffs, but he never really gets into a rhythm. So if you're a Golden Knights fan, you're hoping that you get the real version of Thomas Hertl this year. If you don't, I think that it's going to be a weird season for Vegas, right? You trade away Logan Thompson. Adin Hill is going to be your starting goaltender. He's never started more than 35 games in a season. He's great, but his durability is relatively untested. So I'm a little uncertain about what to expect. Vegas usually finds a way, and they're always willing, of course, we know, to punt those first-round picks and prospects at every turn. They just don't care. So you can never count them out. But I do think to me, it's one of the weirder off seasons in this Vegas era because they were really quiet when you look at it.
Matt, well, shifting a little bit to the Canucks here, you were clamoring for a team to sign Daniel Sprong in the offseason. The Canucks ended up doing that. He looked like Connor McDavid the other night, and you obviously saw the goal. Just what did you like so much about Daniel Sprong in the offseason, and what do you think the Canucks are getting with this player?
Yeah, well, for me, it was all about efficiency. So Daniel Sprong, I'm a numbers guy, so I like to throw some stats at you, okay? So in the last 2 years, he had 39 goals. He played 11 minutes and 44 seconds per game. And if you look at goals per 60 at 5-on-5, he was top 10 in the NHL over the last 2 years, right between Carter Verhaeghe and Zach Hyman. So we know Daniel Sprong, relative to the time you give him, he puts the puck in the net. He's not someone you're going to be putting on your Selke Trophy ballot, I think, ever. So you could argue he needs to play in the top six to really be effective. I know that hasn't been his deployment so far in the preseason, but to me, I'm wondering, obviously, Jonathan Lekkerimaki has been getting a look higher in the lineup. I don't know if that's going to actually stick, if he's going to make the team, but I wonder if you're going to see Daniel Sprong eventually in that top six, maybe playing with DeBrusk and Elias Pettersson. I think that would be a very fun fit, because to me, I just don't think Sprong has gotten enough of an opportunity in his career to play even, let's give him 15 minutes. What could he do? If he's scoring that much with 11 minutes, what could he do with even 15 minutes a game? I don't think he's going to be a defensive liability with that amount of ice time, but just with his efficiency, I'm kind of curious to see what he can bring. I think he's got 20, 25 goals in his stick.
Big picture, how bullish are you on the Canucks relative to the rest of this league's sort of pool of Stanley Cup contenders? Do you view them as legit contenders?
Yeah, it's hard. Like I sigh when I'm asked that question because it all comes down to goaltending. I don't know what's going to happen, and my shoulders kind of slump with each Thatcher Demko update because it's just so murky. And this knee, we're all studying human anatomy, learning what the popliteus muscle is. I think that's how you pronounce it, in his knee. And there's this idea that Demko is going to be dealing with this forever, managing this forever. And we know he's quote unquote getting better, but there's still no timetable for the return. So we're looking at Artur Silovs, who, yes, he gave them a lift in the playoffs, but he was still their third string, not their second string goalie. Their third string goalie. You have Kevin Larkin coming in, who's more experienced than Silovs, so maybe he eventually usurps him for the number two, I guess, temporary number one role, whatever it's going to be. But to me, that's the biggest question mark. The good news is I think the Pacific still looks pretty soft. You have so many teams that are in transition in real rebuild mode. I think LA is going the wrong direction as well. So to me, Vancouver is an easy playoff team, but the ceiling is so uncertain for me because of the goaltending.
How hard was it to rank the goaltending tandems around the league, let alone the Canucks, who you had at 15th? Like, how hard was it just to do all of that? That was a big undertaking there on DFO that you did.
Yeah, it was fun, but it was tough. And sort of the main criterion I used to create the whole list was what 82 games of goaltending are you going to get? So if you have a number one who plays a ton, Connor Hellebuyck, UC Saros, okay, that's 65 games out of the sample. I've got to put those teams very high in the rankings, regardless of the backup. Maybe some teams have two good goalies, like the New York Islanders. So no matter what, you're getting 82 good games of goaltending. They go high. With the Canucks, they're right in the middle of the pack because I'm factoring in if Demko plays, that's going to be quality goaltending, of course, Vezina Trophy finalist. But if he doesn't, then what are you getting from Silovs and Lankinen? They both have relatively small sample sizes in their career. And even if Demko is healthy, what's his workload going to be? I can't imagine he's going to set a career high in starts. If anything, he's going to be load managed more. So I tried to strike the balance between kind of giving Demko his big ups, because we know he's a great goaltender if he's healthy, but also pricing in the risk because we just don't know what we're going to see in terms of his playing time this year.
One general league trend that I'm curious to see if you agree on is it seems like even the best teams in the NHL right now have flaws. I think back to when the Avs won the Cup in 2022 or the Lightning in 2020 and 2021. You could look at those teams on paper and say definitively it was just hard to poke holes and weaknesses and flaws with those rosters. Whereas I look at some of the contenders today and you look at a team like Dallas and how thin they are on the right side of the blue line, or even Edmonton, their blue line situation's questionable. A team like Colorado, their goaltending, the Rangers, there's always question marks around their 5-on-5 play. Do you agree with this idea that even the best teams in the NHL right now have flaws? And what do you think that means for the bigger picture trend of what we might see unfold this year as far as contenders?
Yeah, I think there's at least a partial case that it's true. Even if you look at the Edmonton Oilers, the fact they made it that far to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final with the goaltending duo they had, where Stuart Skinner, you just never knew what he was going to bring you at any given moment, whether it was in a period or a game or a week of the season. He was so hot cold. But at the same time, Florida Panthers, I think a lot of people would have said going into the playoffs, they're the most complete team in the NHL. They had no real flaws on paper, I would argue. But I will say this, in a cap era, the more successful you are, the more you have to pay your stars, the more top-heavy your roster gets, the more you have to rely on entry-level cap hits to help your team out and be successful. And I think that kind of plays into the argument that, hey, you are now more than ever relying on improvement from within, because you just have to. You have to have some guys making $900,000, $800,000 to have a successful team. It's the only way it's going to work. So based on that, yes, I think it's not a big surprise that we see little flaws in almost every team right now.
Okay, last one from me. Jeremy Swayman. When's he going to sign? Like, when is Jeremy Swayman going to sign in Boston?
Yeah, it's funny. I was saying this to someone the other day. I'm someone who's not an alarmist when it comes to RFAs. I'm always like telling people to calm down. Like, no, they're going to sign Moritz Seider, Lucas Raymond, Cole Perfetti, whatever, Thomas Harley. But when Don Sweeney said, I'm sure we're going to get this done by December, I was like, spit take, like, December? Oh, man, this is getting serious. And now we're just at a point where the season is starting in less than 2 weeks. So no matter what, I don't think we're going to be seeing Jeremy Swayman in uniform on opening night. It's going to be hard to get him up to speed. Even if he's staying in shape, it's not the same thing as being with the team. getting game reps, preseason, whatever you want to call it. So I think it's a legitimate concern for Boston right now. And I also think at the same time that they're going to be okay while they're waiting. Eunice Korpisalo, yes, he was terrible for Ottawa, but he hasn't played on good teams very often in his career. Last time he did was with the LA Kings. He was quite good down the stretch after the trade deadline a couple of years ago. And Brandon Bussy's been one of the best goalies in the AHL for the last couple of years. So they'll be okay. At the same time, you are in win now mode if you're the Boston Bruins. Brad Marchand is 36 years old. You just paid up for Nikita Zadorov, Elias Lindholm. You got to put the pedal to the metal, and now is not the time to get cute with that negotiation. You have to accept that Jeremy Swayman has the leverage and pay the man if you're Don Sweeney.
Looking around the NHL right now, is there a team that you think, whether it's for a positive reason in exceeding expectations or disappointing expectations in either direction, is there a team that you have a hot take about, that you're more bullish or more bearish on than the rest of the industry?
Yeah, okay. So you guys can flag me on this if you think this is a fake hot take and if I'm copping out. But I will say this team didn't make the playoffs last year. So yes, okay, fine. They were third overall the year before. But the New Jersey Devils, I think, I'll try to make this a hot take because I think most people agree they're going to get back into the playoffs. New coach. They had horrible injury luck last year. Their goaltending was terrible. They're going to fix that with Jacob Markstrom and Jake Allen. But I'll make the take hot. I'll put it in the oven by saying I think the New Jersey Devils are going to go to the Stanley Cup final. They are my pick to reach the Cup final. I think they were absolutely stacked going into last year. It was just goaltending that let them down. They had a bunch of freak injuries. Pretty much every guy in their team got hurt. And I still think they're extremely deep. Their goaltending problem, even if they had league average goaltending last year, they would have made the playoffs. And I believe they're built to go all the way. So I hope that take is hot enough for you, fellas. That's what I'm going with.
That's
I love
absolutely hot. Do you have who's your Stanley Cup winner prediction? Is it also New Jersey?
I have them going to the final. I almost picked them because we will, by the way, have our predictions coming out soon on Daily Faceoff. But I thought, okay, just calm down, Larkin. This is just too much. So I have them getting there. But I think that the Edmonton Oilers, they're gonna look to what Florida did. They got all the way there, and I think they're gonna finish the job this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they load manage Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, if you see them playing 75 games each, because they're now at the point of their respective careers where they don't really have much left to accomplish in terms of individual hardware. I think they know they're ready to go all the way. So I think a little bit of load management for the Stars, and the Oilers are going to finish the job.
We just had it's funny you mentioned that. This morning, like an hour ago, we had to do our staff predictions for the Athletics season predictions. And I also had an Edmonton, New Jersey Stanley Cup final with Edmonton winning. So
no way.
Wow. That's crazy because I have Canucks Panthers. No, I'm just kidding. Matt, thanks so much for doing this, man. We really appreciate it, and we will chat with you soon.
Absolute pleasure, guys. Anytime.